Week 2 of Reidsville Mayor Jay Donecker being in the studio with us to talk more about the city of Reidsville's response to COVID-19 or coronavirus. A lot of different locations are reacting to this, putting all sorts of policies, changing policies, new policies, and that includes the city of Reidsville considering new policies as far as it goes. And we're here to talk with him to find out more about what's happened since he was here with us last week. And you just left a meeting. I mean, you're hot out of City Hall,
Right.
And we are going to talk about what's going on now. We all received, the news media, of course, receives notices when special meetings are called by the city council. We received one today telling us that you had called a meeting, a special meeting of the city council, and this would be over the possibility of enacting, I guess maybe an ordinance or an order.
Correct.
That would basically say, stay at home. And this is something that city officials would put into place. So let's talk about it, and let's start at the very beginning. What exactly would be a stay-at-home order if the city enacted that?
It depends on what we finally decide to do. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg County has just published one, 12 pages long. It's pretty complete. It basically outlines what the essential services are, which there are many, but it also lays out the behavior that we all are supposed to embrace. But in a very specific fashion. For instance, if you're an insurance agency that deals with medical insurance, you can continue to be in operation. However, you and any of your employees have to stay 6 feet apart. Your customers have to be 6 feet apart. And you, as a business, has to provide a way that a person knows that they're 6 feet apart. So if somebody goes to a grocery store, which still will be open, when they get in line to get to checkout, there should be marks on the floor, it can be good old duct tape, that are 6 feet apart so that people know that when they're waiting in line, they're keeping their social distance of 6 feet. Those are things we're not doing. In addition, there has to be hand sanitizer and sanitizing products readily available for the customers as well as for the employees. No ifs, ands, or buts. There are many essential businesses. There are very few that would be just shut down out of hand, other than barbershops, hair salons,
right.
Something, nail salons, ones that really are not essential. Media, essential. Ruger Manufacturing, essential. Those that are part of a logistical chain and creation of products like Tri-State Steel, essential. Beta Fuels that makes pumps for airplanes to fly, essential. Quite a few. Allbad that makes feminine hygiene products, essential. Agricultural products for food, like what we used to call Keystone Foods, I think it's now called, not sure, with their new corporation.
Right.
Essential. But in the process of being essential, social distancing has to be implemented. At the moment, we don't have that. It's a voluntary. Please do your social distance. So this is another step. This is a process. This is not something that our council takes lightly. Therefore, this emergency meeting, which by law we could call 6 hours ahead of time, I could, as long as we properly notified the media, and we did it before 10 a.m. this morning, so we could meet at 4,
right.
Is based on a number of meetings that I've had in the last 48 hours about the infection, the number of samples that have been taken, the concern of our medical community about how the infection is here, and just because of limited testing, it's probably more prevalent than what we realize.
Right.
Now, what council agreed upon today is that we will have a stay-at-home order. That has been stayed, which means it's not going to be implemented until we have more input from law enforcement, from our county government, from our governor's office, from our own attorney, Bill McLeod, from other communities that are thinking of contemplating similar stay-at-home orders. The best world would be that we're all the same across the whole United States. Second best is within our state. Right now, we don't have that. And so as a community, we want to educate ourselves so that if we are provided information by our medical professionals, particularly Moses Cone Hospital System for Reidsville and Annie Penn,
Right.
and they say we're having an issue, we're going to have an issue of running out of staff to monitor the beds, or not enough PPE, or not enough testing, or we've had a couple positives come in, then we will call another emergency meeting. We will have a game plan lined out specifically, much like Charlotte-Mecklenburg has already done, and we will then implement it.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Greensboro and High Point were going to enact one today.
Correct.
Or at least that was the discussion earlier in the day. Now, there are people that are, of course, complaining about what's going on. They're saying, how am I going to get my hair cut? Or how am I going? I went today, so I'm good, but I went today. But there are people that are saying, what about my barber? Or what about my beauty shop? Or what about this or that? And a lot of these businesses, and I'm going to mention just a few of these businesses, for instance, and to the people that attend these businesses, I'm sure they think they're important to them or they are essential to them. But when it comes to health clubs and gyms and movie theaters and all, those are things that people usually do recreationally, or it's a part of their everyday routine of some kind. But there are businesses where these are people in close proximity to one another, and these are the ones that were handed down by the governor, by Governor Cooper yesterday. So they all went into effect. They're already closed, or should be. If Reidsville enacted a stay-at-home, and they happen to see, you find out, you get a complaint that somebody is doing something against the rules, against these orders. What does that mean? How does that work?
That's a question we're going to have to answer appropriately. If it's one neighbor just ratting on their other neighbor and it's inconsequential, obviously nothing will be done. But if it's a grocery store that's allowing too many people congregating their checkout lines close to close, then we have to figure out a standard operating procedure so that either our law enforcement officers or our code enforcement officers are able to go in, assess it, and verify that the complaint's valid.
And if the complaint is valid?
Absolutely.
That's a misdemeanor, I would believe. It could be.
Well, according to Charlotte-Mecklenburg, theirs is a Class 2 misdemeanor. That is correct.
Right.
We are looking into all that. Just because it's working in Charlotte-Mecklenburg doesn't mean it'll work here. We have a much smaller law enforcement. We have much smaller code enforcement. There's a lot of questions that we need to answer. And we have, as council, by making this decision today, we are giving impetus to all the agencies associated with our city government to kind of get on the same page and give us something if and when Annie Penn mentions it. We're concerned about our hospital being overwhelmed, because based on our numbers, this is what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. We're not going to sit down and take this lying down. We're also not going to sit and wait for the governor to do something, or even the county commissioners. We very much would like to be aligned with the other municipalities in this county and our county government. We'd love to be aligned with all the other counties. But if push comes to shove and there's a little bit of dithering at other levels of government, we want to ensure that we will take the best chance possible to make sure that Annie Penn is not going to get overwhelmed.
What is your response? What is your response to people when they say you're overreacting to this?
I think that's actually a good thing. I would say that you would want somebody in a position of leadership who's gaming out all the worst scenarios. Because today we had a unanimous decision to do this, but you know who didn't have a vote today? The virus.
Right.
We don't know how that virus is going to react. And so what we're doing is putting in place that if push comes to shove and something needs to be done, we can call a meeting, announce it six hours ahead of time, and get in there and have advice put in front of us for us to consider and hopefully implement within that same meeting. We don't want to be faced with a decision and we say, oh, can you go talk to other law enforcement, just like we did today. We need to find out more from other law enforcement. There's a lot we need to know.
Right.
And until we had our meeting today, there just wasn't quite enough impetus across the community to really get all those questions answered.
I think some people are taking this very seriously. My barber, who cut my hair today, said if I get caught, it's a misdemeanor and I can lose my license. That's my livelihood. And I think a lot of people are taking this seriously. I know that probably you, like I, have traveled around the city of Reidsville. Bless you. And
Funny.
as you notice, he practices safe cough, sneeze there, cough with her.
We're trying to model good behavior.
One thing, great job on that, by the way. One thing that I think people are noticing, even people that are not under the threat of some type of charge or a civil charge or a criminal charge, is that this is a serious matter, and that a lot of people are afraid and they are losing business by this, but it's not going to last forever, we hope. And so this is something that maybe will hopefully pass sooner than later. I guess the saying comes down to it's better to have it, talking about what you're talking about here, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Right. And I think, though, that the way the infection is going across the state and other parts of the country, it's not a question of whether we're going to have this infection, it's when. And the whole point is to limit the amount of infection so that our hospital locally and within the Moses Cone system can handle that.
Right.
There's a lot of modeling going on, and when we talk about flattening the curve, it also means so that we don't overwhelm the hospitals, but it also means that people will get infected over an extended period of time. So that in some ways, because we don't have a artificial vaccine made by manufacturers, in some ways many people are going to be vaccinated by exposure to this virus. Unfortunately, a certain percentage are going to get deathly ill. And unfortunately, of those, some are going to need ventilators, and unfortunately some are going to die. This virus, yes, it's a coronavirus, which our common flu is also a coronavirus. This is not common flu. It is twice as virulent at least, and it is numbers of times more fatal when a person gets it. So
You are a man of science. You are a scientist. And so have you ever from the time you graduated college, Dr. Donecker, by the way, is a veterinarian, but we know that human medicine and veterinary medicine are parallel in many, many ways. But overall, you are a scientist. You are a man of science. Have you ever seen anything quite like this before?
Not involving people in any way, shape, or form. I have been involved with a very virulent virus that was going through the United Kingdom in early 2000s. And I was part of a team from the USDA that went in to kind of answer the question why it was extending out for so long as it was.
Right.
And that was part, that involves surveillance testing. So I have been exposed, no pun intended, to another virus that is extremely virulent. And then when I returned, I was involved with setting up the bioterrorism initiative because that same virus was being looked at by anti-agricultural individuals, in fact, people who were against these large hog operations in particular, of trying to infect it in our hogs here in the United States. It never went anywhere in regards to that threat, but we certainly gamed and scenarioed and set up a number of initiatives, some of which are still in place today, such as the incident control system that all firefighters use with a fire is now the basis for how the medical community responds to a pandemic like this.
Now, as a man of medicine, that's some of what you have seen. As the leader of the city council and the mayor of the city, what scares you most about this?
Well, what scares me most is we're caught flat-footed.
Well, do you find that some people have for the lack of a better word, a lackadaisical kind of attitude towards this and saying that this is being way overblown and that it's not going to be as bad as that? I mean, does that concern you?
It does, but I'm a firm believer that if we keep putting the information out, there are enough good people out there, and we already see it today, and that eventually the people who have that kind of attitude are going to be surrounded by a lot of other people that aren't doing that. Mm-hmm. And this is all about population infections and populations. It's all about how the majority are behaving. You always factor in that there are going to be a number of outliers that are going to say, forget it, I'm not going to follow this. And it's up to us as a society to just limit those numbers of people. And I'm a very firm believer in the can-do attitude of Reidsville and in the goodness of virtually everybody here. And those two characteristics are going to carry us through so that good people are going to understand that this is, in the greater scheme of things, a short duration pain for a long duration good. And I'd like to say that the best thing that could happen is nobody dies in Rockingham County from this, right, and then only a few ventilators. We have enough people die from regular flu and from car accidents and everything else that we don't need another thing piled on top to kill some more of our friends and neighbors.
And I have seen that same argument that people are using, and they're saying the flu is much worse. People die from car accidents. We don't stop people from driving because people die in car accidents. But I think this is something that we've not been prepared for, right, that we didn't see coming. I've got some more questions for you, but we want to show, Jonathan, can we show the graphic for Team Reidsville for people for the Code Red system? And here is where a lot of information, you can get a lot of local information about what's happening in the city of Reidsville. And so we're encouraging everybody to use this system, the Code Red system. And here's the good thing about it. You can text this if you want to. But if you go to the City of Reidsville's website, you can actually fill out the form, and you can
right,
get telephone calls, you can get emails, and you can get text messages. I get all three, and I'm up to date on what's going on in the City of Reidsville. So I think this is a great time to remind people that if you do text Team Reidsville to 99411, you're going to get that information that's coming out. A lot of really good information.
Right.
And I think the Code Red system, it's definitely, you used it again on Sunday.
Yep.
I received my call. We aired it on Monday for our viewers that don't have Code Red, but we do encourage them to do that. But we did play your message, and in that message you did say that you had been out and about and you had noticed that people are not social distancing.
Correct.
So how do you get it across to people that that's what they've got to do? Just
what we're doing now. You know, it's the old, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. The vast majority are, but there's always a number of outliers.
Yeah.
One thing I'd have to be careful of is it's very easy for people to say, oh, it's the youngsters, they just don't know. Can you believe that group that was in Miami Beach? I'm seeing it in other people's behavior here, whether it's two men closely associated riding on a golf cart at Penrose, mm-hmm, who aren't in the same household. So, I mean, everybody has to understand there's got to be a new normal for a number of months till we get through this, till the virus basically passes through, enough of our community gets basically vaccinated naturally with it, and let's hope there's long-lasting immunity so we don't have to go through this through another surge, let's say in the fall or next spring, at least until we have a vaccine developed.
Got a message from Angela Stadler, Code Red message, and apparently the city is a little bit concerned about the sewer system because of people, right, because we know that there are people out there hoarding toilet paper, and we do know that there are people that are probably using other things in order to hygiene items, baby wipes and different things like that, and so the city is having a tough time with that and asking everybody not to flush those items.
That's true. Little Reidsville twist to it is there is a manufacturer that actually makes these handy wipes that actually dissolve, mm-hmm, in water and can be used in septic systems, and that's all bad.
Right.
They have the patent, I want to say they got it about 3 years ago. I can't recognize in the store which ones are the products that can dissolve in water and which ones can't.
Right.
And I'm not about ready to go down my pipes to figure it out. So just don't do it for the time being.
So, as of right now, the way it stands, the city council is in discussion, the city council is in research, but it's coming. We're going to see
Correct.
an order to come down and basically say, stay at home. Only for essential travel only.
Right, and the stay-at-home order will involve quite a bit of description about what is a essential. If you look at Charlotte, in fact, you can go on the website and look up a Charlotte-Mecklenburg stay-at-home order, and you will see it's pretty complete, but it lists quite a few areas of work that are considered essential. The key is that they have to practice social distancing, 6 feet apart, making sure that there's freely available hand sanitizer and other sanitizing product for any customers they deal with, but also for their employees. So these kind of directions is not hunker down in your house and don't ever come out. It recognizes that people have to have a certain amount of movement, whether it's to go to their caregivers or have caregivers come in. It's pretty self-explanatory, but the whole point is for us to employ a little bit more aggressive social distancing.
One thing that I think that is really the point is that I know that the president has said that he's hoping that by Easter that things are going to change, and I know that there's a lot of talk about trying to get things going again, trying to get people back out, trying to get the economy going again, and then there are medical officials on the other side saying, whoa, slow that horse up a little bit. We've got to slow up. We can't do this. So there's a lot of different information, and so I know that pulling all of this information together, trying to pull information from the government and then from health officials and all of these different people has got to be a huge, phenomenal task.
It is, but it's just like so many other things. It's a smart person who knows what they don't know. And so you go to a website that has a number of epidemiologists that are internationally recognized, and you look at the modeling for North Carolina on a twice daily basis, and you can track based on the testing. Now, we know right now that Moses Cone, just a few days ago, took over 900 samples throughout their hospital network. And we also know that it takes them about a week to get those results back. Mm-hmm. So we may see the model change based on those 900 results. And if and when it changes, that we have a shorter amount of time that we need to have our protocol in place, our council is prepared to act appropriately.
Do we have any idea how long it will be before this council does that? How long, what kind of timeline are you looking at?
Well, based on previous testing, it looked like we had 4 days, but now on recent testing, or I should say lack of testing for a few days, it's now pushed out to beyond April 12th, which is Easter.
So, but I mean, let me go back. If the city enacts this stay at home, how long does it look like that would be before that happens?
As a betting person, I'd probably say that we're certainly going to re-examine this in 1 week.
Okay.
Now, if the model changes and it has to be less than that, we will. If all of a sudden, because of the springtime, the virus magically disappears, which I don't think is going to happen, the scientist says no, Pollyanna says yes, then who knows? We may not have to enact it at all. But I don't believe that. I just, I'm looking at all the different scenarios, from not doing anything at all to doing it within a couple of days.
So if you were a betting man, you would be betting on the side of it's going to happen.
Yeah, it is going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And right now, we may not reconsider exactly what we're going to implement for about a week.
Now, let's talk about, before you go, let's talk about other things. How's the city business going since this has all come about? Because we have gotten, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's really tough for us as a small news agency to keep up with all of the different closings, and some city halls are saying make an appointment, call and make an appointment.
That's what we're doing.
And that's I got one today saying we're not going to, if you show up, you got to have an appointment. They're doing that. Another one of the animal welfare organizations is doing the same thing. Please call and make an appointment. So this has changed, and I've got to admit, in my entire lifetime, I have never seen anything quite like this. And it's amazing to be on both sides of it, as someone who has to report the news, but then someone who's also living it. Because when I go in the grocery store, which I don't do a lot of right now, but when I do go, there's nobody there. When I went to the barbershop to get my hair cut today, there's only a few people in there. Usually there's a lot of people in there.
Right.
So this thing has changed all of our lives. And it looks like that it's going to continue to keep changing our lives for a while. Are we going to expect any more from Reidsville city government? Do you think there's going to be, I know you can't speak for a county government or a state, but what about city government? Are we going to see any more changes? Do you think this is?
Well, yeah. As you know, the recreation center is now closed.
Right.
And we've done a number of reduction of staffing and spreading around staffing, so that if somebody gets a positive in one set of offices, there's another critical person located somewhere else, so they all don't have to quarantine at the same time. Also, we are re-examining our budget. As you know, we have to make available our budget in May for approval in June to enact in July. And so, unlike the state government, we have to have a budget in place by the 1st of July.
Right.
And we will be doing that. And the yeoman efforts by Chris Phillips, our assistant city manager, and Preston Mitchell, our city manager, in reconfiguring the preliminary budget, they're doing that at the same time. We're a group that can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Anything else you want to add before we go? I know that we want to do this. We're planning for the time being to do these weekly updates for you here. But is there anything else you'd like to throw out before we
just to say there's a lot of committed individuals who want to do what's best for the community, and that and what's best is not only for a near-term pleasure and gratification, it's also mid to long term. And I'm lucky to be serving on a council in which everybody there is not only concerned about what's good and right for the city, but they also have the ability to look to the midterm future and to the long-term future, and make the kind of decisions that are necessary to keep us safe. And thank goodness we have a city administration that supports us.
So if this all comes about, I'm sure that Angela is really good about putting things on the city's website and on Facebook. If an order, once an order becomes official, I guess all of that will be posted, and people will know that they are essential, non-essential, how they're supposed to act, and all of that. Do you ever think we'll get to a point where there's going to be, and this is a far out question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, do you ever think there will be a point where there's going to be no travel after 9 o'clock or between 9 and 6 or anything like that? Do you think it's mainly going to be go do what you got to do it quickly, get home?
Yeah, what you describe is more like martial law.
Right.
And if the question, no. This is, when we talk about flattening the curve, we're also extending the duration.
Yeah.
And one, martial law flies in the face of all our American values right out of the gate.
Right.
Secondly, to do something for such long duration, we have to have practical methods and procedures that people will consciously do them. If you tighten the screws down too hard, like they did in China or even in South Korea,
right.
The independent spirit of Americans will not take that. That includes me. So I'm prepared that this may take a little bit longer, but in the process, our liberties are going to be preserved, but also our health. And our health is what's most important at this time. We have a Congress now that is setting up the third stimulus bill to the proportion that will make a difference for our community. And that's what we need to.
All right, so we will see you next week.
Next Wednesday.
And we will, as we are doing here, all of us here at Star News TV are doing our social distancing as well. Jonathan is about 20 feet that way. Matt's on the other side of the building with a transmitter. So we're doing our part here too. And we're asking everybody to do their part. Just today, while I was in the store, I noticed, and people are actually doing this. Well, people were doing this. They're actually spacing themselves apart, and I think that's a fantastic thing. And that's here in Reidsville.
I was at Walmart to pick up a item on Sunday, and people were really trying to do it.
Yeah.
The checkout line, it was difficult, but even there, when we went into the little area where you do self-checkout, I noticed when we were there were 2 machines behind us. Nobody came in.
Right.
We finished ours, and then somebody else came in. So there's a lot of people who are doing it. It's just that we need to kind of get more of the population. We're almost there.
Yeah, so keep doing it. So for those of you that's doing that already, and again, I saw a couple of you doing it today while I was in the store here in Reidsville. Actually, it was in the pharmacy. Then kudos to you for following along and trying to make a difference. I think it's great. It's fantastic.
Keep washing your hands.
Keep washing those hands and keeping those distance. Have you seen the Neil Diamond?
No, I missed it.
Did you see that? Oh, it's great. Where he's talking about washing your hands, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
And so he did that, changed the words to Sweet Caroline, but it's great. So you got to watch it. It's great.
Okay.
You may need to put that on the city
I'm doing
website.
more. I'm doing more internet streaming
Yes.
than I've ever done before.
So watch Neil Diamond. That the video went viral. It's always a pleasure to have you here, and
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate you coming here, and I appreciate you taking time, and I appreciate you bringing the news from the City Council. I know that Preston Mitchell is really anxious about getting this information out. City Manager Preston Mitchell, I know you are, and I know our City Council members are trying to get this information out and wanting the citizens to know what's going on. So thank you, and we will look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Reidsville Mayor Dr. Jay Donecker here with us to give us an update on what's going on with COVID-19, the city's response to COVID-19, and if something happens between now and his next visit, of course we will let you know. So stay tuned to Star News TV, both on the air and on Facebook as well. We'll be back. We got more coming up in just a moment.